That's right. Welcome back, folks, to a Notre Dame fans clearly are not all on the same page regarding new coach Marcus Freeman edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find this program on the popular website known as YouTube. Do it, subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up. Hit notifications. You'll be alerted every time a new episode drops. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishindy@gmail.com. Audio only anywhere you want me. You can locate me. Call in line 312-900-8815. Another one of those coming your way soon. So, camp is right around the corner, folks. Football season's almost back. There's a tinge. I don't know where you're at. I'm in Chicago, the greater metropolitan Chicago area. It's hot, but there's a tinge of falliness around outside that excites somebody like me. You feel it in your soul. It's just there, and I love it. Season's creeping up fast. That means it's time to start shifting our focus away from all the off-season excitement, even a little bit away from recruiting, as exciting as that's been for us to follow all off-season. All those what-ifs and all the excitement and all that. We got to start getting serious about winning time in season. With this being said, in emails, direct messages, comments from YouTube, it is clear to me not every Notre Dame fan is thinking about the beginning of the Freeman era the same way. That's fine. I get it. That's fine. Notre Dame has a huge fan base spread out all over the country, all over the world. And all those individual fans have perspectives shaped from their own life and consumption and history with Notre Dame football over the decades. It's fine to look at things different. Now, while I think most people are thrilled with Freeman so far, some of the messages I've gotten the last few days from our own fan base, I think show a lack of realistic situational awareness of what Freeman is in this exact moment and where Notre Dame's at this exact moment. And I say at this exact moment because what Marcus Freeman is as head coach now isn't going to be what he is in 3 or 4 years. People are missing that. I'm going to address a couple of the main philosophical themes that I've seen in these sometimes angry messages to me from our own fans. Number one, lots of these messages telling me to stop talking about how well Marcus is recruited, saying it means nothing right now. It's physically impossible for me to disagree with this position more. I cannot wrap my mind around it. Recruiting is the lifeblood of college football. It is the engine that drives every single program. And in the modern era, you need elite talent to win. You just do. I've done the research. Don't challenge me. I've done it. Teams that win titles the last decade, 12 years, top 5-ish talent overall for a couple cycles leading into the winning year, and or the best quarterback in the country. Cam Newton, Lawrence, that type of deal. Okay? The facts are in. The research has been done. You need top 5-ish talent and or the best quarterback to win playoff games, win a championship. Okay? The research proves it. And this staff is up in the talent every week, every damn week. What these people do is they start listing teams that always recruit well but never deliver as examples of why recruiting rankings are irrelevant. I say that position's irrelevant. Each school, situation, leadership is all different. You cannot compare some of these schools getting great talent, but that have no infrastructure, no stable culture, coaches that are lunatics or just awful. Like, you can't compare that to Notre Dame in their current dynamic with a rock solid, stable culture, solid coaches people think a lot of. Those facts should help alleviate that concern. But it's a little cheap when you throw out like Florida State and all the instability and the issues they've had there and all that. Oh, they usually recruit good, can't do anything. You can't compare that and all that goes into that, or Miami recruiting well, but the actual institution's a dumpster fire. Don't try and twist that into this. Totally different scenarios. Notre Dame's culture is stable. That's a big deal. Okay? Recruiting matters. It is the most important thing. Coach them up, develop them, relate to the guys, motivate them. Yep, all those things are critically important. Having the most talent's number one. It is. Nobody's going to tell me it ain't. Embrace it. Now that Notre Dame's doing good at it, embrace it. Don't fight it. Embrace it. I don't understand how our own fans can find a way to be critical of Freeman working on improving the number one Brian Kelly complaint. The number one complaint everybody had about Brian Kelly is, I would say, number one, doesn't get enough elite talent to win the biggest games we play. And number two, he wasn't a good motivator. We came out flat in some of our biggest games of recent vintage, and that's totally unacceptable at Notre Dame. Disconnect there, okay? Those would be my top two complaints. Number one, by far, didn't recruit elite enough, often enough to give us the talent to beat the best teams we play. And number two, not finding a way to get your guys fired up to go play at Miami or at the Big House or in a playoff game. Totally unacceptable, okay? But saying that these recruiting wins do not matter and you're out of touch. All the people telling me it doesn't matter that Notre Dame's fighting for one or two in the rankings of recruiting. How can you say that doesn't matter? It's the most important factor that determines who's going to win or not. Talent. Raw ass talent. Now that Notre Dame's doing good in that area, embrace it. Don't fight it. Embrace it. So that's number one. I got a lot of people messaging me that. John, I used to like your program. Or Brian Kelly, I like your program. John, I used to like your material. But now you're giving so much love for this recruiting. It's over the top. It's too much. I can't do it. You know what, pal? You know what, chief? You know what, bud? I waited 11 years to be this excited about recruiting at Notre Dame, and it took Swamp Thing to go down south for it to finally happen enough for me to talk about it every damn week. I ain't backing down now. Embrace it. Notre Dame's finally good at the number one factor that determines everything. And I got Notre Dame people fighting me over the the legitimacy of it. Get a grip. Here's number two. Number two. This is another theme I've gotten a bunch of messages on. Freeman is expected to take this team to new heights and win the games Brian Kelly couldn't, and that's why he was brought here. Well, yes, and kind of no. Yes and no. Yes, he was brought in to win the games Brian Kelly couldn't. On the surface, sure, obviously that's the point. But there's more to the story. Don't shortchange us intellectually by leaving it right there and not digging deeper. How do you account for the areas Freeman sees that need improvement from how Brian Kelly either recruited or developed? You really think, as an adult, all those issues, and there are lots, can really be solved in one off season? One off season's all it takes to undo multiple years of unacceptable recruiting in multiple areas of this team. And you think Marcus is here with his great personality? One off season is enough to change all that? You're out of your mind. Out of your mind. That is unrealistic. We're not talking here about trying to win 10 or more games. We're talking about trying to win championships. There's a lot of work to be done, in my opinion, to go from where we're at now to that vision and make it reality. All right? People expect Freeman to go 12-0 this year. John, he was brought in here to win the games Kelly couldn't. Got to do it right away, 12-0. I just think there's more work to be done here to become truly elite than some of you seem to think. But philosophically, some of you same people that are messaging me this stuff are the same people saying, we got to get Kelly out of here. He's not going to recruit enough to get us over the hump. But now you don't want to give Freeman the time it takes to dig out of that hole, and you expect perfection right away? Unrealistic. And if it happens, then great. If that happens, this is all way above schedule. This is way ahead of schedule if that all happens. And I want it to. I'm just going off of this roster the way I see it. The thin problem areas where you're one or two injuries away from a disaster. A disaster. Okay? So, I get it. If they go 12-0, beautiful. This is way ahead of schedule. It's off to the races. But if they don't write off Marcus Freeman. You got to give him a reasonable amount of time to undo the number one reason we all wanted the other guy gone. One off season isn't enough, damn it. It isn't. There's more work to be done than that. Open your eyes. See that. See that. And if I'm wrong, and in November we're 12-0, I'm going to be thrilled. And I'll come on here and say, damn, I was wrong about that one, and I'm glad I was. I'd be happy to have that discussion. Okay? Here's the other part of this. Freeman doesn't come in here as a finished product. I thought everybody knew that. He has some learning to do here, and that's not easy, but it's a part of the deal. He was brought in here with huge potential upside, with elite, not good, not very good, not pretty good, with elite recruiting as the driving engine of all this. Marcus himself is not a finished product. We all need to keep that in mind. There's some risk here. And I think that risk will quickly be eliminated. But there is some risk in handing over the keys to a guy with no head coaching experience. Freeman isn't the finished product of what he's going to be. So don't expect to see that early on this year. He's got work to do too. That's a part of the deal. That's a part of the deal. What you're gaining in elite recruiting, on one hand, you're giving up experience that Brian Kelly had on the other hand. We tried it Kelly's way, weren't able to get over the hump. Now I applaud Notre Dame for trying the other way. Load up on the elite talent. Trust this guy's going to be able to figure out how to manage it. And I respect Notre Dame's willingness to go down this path. Right time, right situation, right guy. Okay? So there could be some rough patches this year. Maybe not, but maybe. If there is, I'm telling you, Notre Dame fans, roll with it and just know we're going to be better off for it down the road. Unlike with Brian Kelly, there is a light at the end of the Marcus Freeman tunnel. All this elite talent inherently raises the ceiling of what's capable for this program. Okay? Under Brian Kelly, he wasn't changing how he was recruiting at Notre Dame. That meant you were going to get the same results in perpetuity. We saw it over and over again. He wasn't willing to change. You're going to get the same result. You knew you weren't getting over the hump with the other guy. This guy is putting you in a position where 2 to 3 years from now, talent is not going to be an issue holding Notre Dame back from winning playoff games. That's progress. Don't fight it. But the notion that Freeman's this polished, finished product right now, week one, year one, it's not true. You want it to be true to feel better about the risk of having a guy with no experience, but it's just not reality. So the idea that we're over celebrating the recruiting victories and it's somehow offensive and inappropriate, I totally disagree with. I waited 11 years to sit here and talk about Notre Dame recruiting being actually really elite, nationally elite, top 5, okay? Now that we finally have it, I'm going to roll with it, okay? And number 2, yes, Freeman's brought in to win the games Kelly couldn't win. With that, I thought it was built in the understanding that there might be some work that needs to be done, okay? It'd be different if Kelly left for LSU with an elite roster, elite quarterback, great wide receivers, no questionable depth anywhere, different discussion. Then it would be a different discussion. That's not the situation Freeman inherited. It isn't. Understand that. So, I'm sorry, but I had to push back on a couple of these narratives that I just think people are not wanting to see the exact realities here. And if I'm dead wrong and he goes 12-0, we all win. I guess you were right, I was wrong, but we're all happy. I don't know. Love this recruiting. Embrace this recruiting. Get used to this recruiting, okay? Let all that elite talent fill out these rosters while Freeman's learning the ropes of being a head coach. Revisit this 2 to 3 years. He's a more polished head coach, and the roster is almost totally un-Brian Kelly-fied. Can't wait.